something, we're going to post this webinar on our website. So by next week, we're going to have that there the week of June 7th. So the session will be posted to our website. If I could ask everyone, please, while we're doing the presentation, to keep your cameras off and your microphones muted. We do find sometimes, especially when we have a large group, sometimes there's a bit of a lag in the presentation if we all have our cameras on. So if we could just turn our cameras off during the presentation, that's fantastic. We are going to have, excuse me, a question and answer session at the end. So if you would like to turn on your camera at that time, you are more than welcome to do that. Carla or Jennifer, can you just let me know that you can still hear me, because my screen froze.
Yes, we can hear you, Angie.
Yeah, we're hearing you just fine.
Yep. Okay, fantastic. So we've just had a lot of people coming in, and as I'm clicking them to come in, I think it froze my screen. So as I was mentioning, we're really excited that you're all here to join us tonight. We've got a great crowd. We would ask that everyone keep their camera off during the presentation so that it doesn't lag with so many of us in the meeting at the same time. So we are recording it and you can watch it later. Just want to make sure everyone understands that, because we had a few join after I'd already said that. So something else that I want to mention is, if you're not familiar with Teams, up at the top of your screen, there's a little dialogue bubble. And if you click on that, it'll open up a chat on the side. So if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat during the presentation, or you can just make note of them and ask them at the end. Sometimes we think of things and then they end up being talked about during the presentation. So if you put a question in the chat, I might answer it during the presentation, or we might wait until the end and discuss it then. But we definitely will have a question and answer session. Tonight is all about you finding the information that you need. So when you start here in September, you're feeling confident, you've got all the tools that are required. So I'm going to turn this over now to Carla and Jennifer for their presentation.
Hello. I'm just going to turn on my camera first before I then go and share the presentation with you all to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Bartlett. I go by Jenny though. And I teach primarily at the Fredericton campus in early childhood education. That said, we do some cross-campus teaching now that we have teams available to do some virtual classes as well, which is something that I'm sure a lot of you have gotten used to in the past year or so. Just wanted to give you a look at my face, and now I will turn off my camera and share the presentation. Carla, did you want to say hi first or just partway through?
Yeah, it's probably easier now, Jen. Just I get my camera on here and say hi. And I don't need to be life-size, I hope, but Carla Baxter, I'm going to do the educational assistant end of the presentation today. So welcome. And Jen's going to be my flipper of my PowerPoint. So if you hear me say, you know, next slide, you'll know why. Jen's our technical advisors. Yes, Jen's going to go through the beginning and look at early childhood. Then I'll go through the educational assistant stuff. And then we have a section on general college life. And then we'll go to question and answers. So I'll turn it over to Jen, and I'll be speaking with you, and look forward. Welcome. I'll see all of you in the hallways in the St. John campus if you're there. That's where I'm located. And we do teach across campus, as Jen said. So I also will be one of the instructors with the educational assistant crew in Moncton. So look forward to working with you. Bye-bye.
Okay, I just need some confirmation that you guys can actually see the presentation.
It looks awesome, Jen.
Wonderful. We are in the middle of switching technology, so I'm not overly familiar with Teams, but I'll get pretty good at it over the summer. So welcome. We're really happy to be able to be here tonight to answer a few questions for you guys and give you a little bit of further detail on what the NBCC experience is going to be like in our two programs, which are the early childhood education and the educational assistant. Our programs are housed under what is known as the School of Arts, Community, and Protective Services. What that means is that there are a number of programs that have all been bundled together, but it's not a physical school. It's more of a virtual school, and it's part of our organizational system. We still do have campus-based activities going on. Okay. early childhood education? It's just a program overview, which I'm sure some of you have probably already seen since when you first decided to take a look at these two programs, you most likely went on the website, and that's where this has been taken from. So early childhood educators really do play an essential role in shaping children's lifelong views of learning. And that is a huge foundation to what we do in our early childhood education program. We really support students in recognizing children at their unique stage of development that they are at, and ensure that we are planning for engaging learning activities for them, while also providing care throughout the day. Early childhood education program really does focus on the early years, but when it comes to child development and some of our more like curriculum type of courses, we do also focus on up to age 12, because childcare includes after school care as well. Students learn how to design, apply, and evaluate holistic educational programs so that they are ready to implement such programs after graduation. As well as developing those skills that are necessary to be able to observe children, document their learning, reflect on practices and what it is that you're seeing so that you can plan for engaging classrooms for the children. We focus a lot on professionalism. And as you move into your second year, as you'll see when I go over the courses here, we start to take a look at some leadership as well as interpersonal relationships. In this program, students also acquire knowledge and ability in the areas of positive child guidance, language and literacy developments, as well as, of course, the health and safety of the children in their care. And there's a big focus on diversity and inclusion in the early years. And of course, it wouldn't be early childhood education without some knowledge of child development as a foundation. In support of the New Brunswick Curriculum Framework for Early Learning and Childcare English, our program's educational approach is really very constructivist, and I'll go over what that means in a couple of seconds, and developmental, and it's really all about the interactions and the relationships that you develop with the children in your classes. The New Brunswick Curriculum Framework for Early Learning and Childcare is a mandated framework that if you are working in early learning and childcare programs here in New Brunswick in an English setting, that's what you will be implementing. And you will get very, very familiar with this document by the time you finish our program. So it is a 2-year diploma. Year 1 starts in September and goes all the way to June. So you have 3 terms in the first year. There's a 7-week practicum as well that gives you a chance to really apply all of the knowledge that you have been acquiring through your coursework. Year 2 will only go from September to April, so you will be able to join the workforce after completing your studies at the end of April. So it's only a 2-term year for second year. Students will acquire the knowledge, skills, and abilities to design and implement that holistic early learning and childcare program that I was mentioning earlier. And what we mean by holistic is that we don't take a look at one particular thing that a child is learning, but we look at it all integrated over time to make sure that we are meeting children's needs. And as I had said, the focus is really 5 and under early learning centers, and then a little bit for the after school care from 5 and up, so once they get into the school years. Graduates from our program will be prepared to implement the New Brunswick Curriculum Framework for Early Learning and Childcare quite extensively. You will be studying that document in most of your coursework. And when you complete year 1 with the practicum, you will qualify for the minimum standard of qualified educator status. So what that fancy term actually means is that you qualify for some salary top up. So you are not making minimum wage, but you are making closer to $19 an hour. And you do not have to take the government's introductory orientation to early childhood education, because you've gotten that and so much more in just your first year. And then your second year is where we develop those skills. So what does that developmental approach mean that I mentioned a little bit earlier? It really means that we are child-centered in our approach. So that means that we focus on children's well-being in all domains of development, so social, cognitive, emotional, as well as physical. And we take a strength-based approach. So we look at what children can do, and then we find ways to add to that. rather than looking at what it is that a child is not capable of doing. We switch that lens so that we are making sure that we are celebrating that unique stage of childhood, and encouraging people not to be rushing children through it, because those early years are so important to their development and future adult outcomes as well. The child-centered approach also means that we focus on developing healthy interpersonal relationships amongst the children, but also between the children and their caregivers. And it also extends to the families to whom those children belong, and who it is that you're going to be working with. Families really are our most important professional partners in early learning and childcare, and they are considered the child's first teacher. And it's a real collaborative approach in terms of supporting children and their families, not just the children themselves. Another huge element of our program is that we encourage concrete experimentation through play. So not only are we child-centered, we are also very play-based. This means that the kind of learning experiences that you are going to learn to develop for children is all about play and free play for the most part, but also exploration, creativity, imagination. And it's about meeting the children where they are at to be able to expand their experiences so that they can continue to learn through hands-on ways. You're not going to see children asked to sit at tables and write their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s in our program. That's later, that's when they get to school. But our early years programs are really very play-based, and we focus on the individual child. One of the other things that you will learn how to do quite extensively is not only plan for children's learning by offering activities, you're also going to learn how to design outdoor and indoor environments where children can explore and play safely and in a way that really sparks their creativity and their imagination. The freedom to explore things that are authentic and real and inspiring, the things that they actually encounter in the real world rather than the toy version of them, in order to create curiosity and wonderment in their daily experiences in your program. So a little bit about the curriculum. In term 1, so that would be the fall of this year if you're signed up for early childhood education, these are some samples of the courses that you would take. Orientation to Early Childhood Education, and that's a course that focuses a little bit on the history of early childhood education, some of the foundational theories, and importantly, why play is so important to the learning and development of young children. That's the fun part of the course for those of you who don't like history. Still a great course. Children's Wellbeing is another course that you'll be taking in the fall, and that is where you really focus on the health and safety requirements that are expected of you as an early childhood educator in a licensed facility here in New Brunswick. So you're going to learn how to implement what's known as the operator manual to make sure that you're in compliance with all of those safety regulations that are necessary in order for the children to be safe and happy enough to learn. You also study child development, right from conception up until age 2. And that carries over into the winter term, where you'll then again study child development, but you'll focus on preschool up until age 12. Literacy and program planning is a super fun hands-on course that is really emphasizing and getting to understand that curriculum framework. So you'll get opportunities to play in our classroom, and you'll get opportunities also to engage with children through field work, probably once a week during the fall term, so that you can see what it's like to be working in an early learning center and also get a little taste of what it is that you do when you're planning a program for young children. And then observation and documentation in early childhood education. It's a really unique type of observation and documentation where we are looking for those strengths and learning how to make what the children know and what they are learning visible to others through creating learning stories and taking photographs of children to point out to others and the children themselves what it is that they are capable of and what they are learning and what they know. You also will have to take a couple of common courses in year 1. Interpersonal communication, It's actually a winter term course, but it's a pretty fun course as well, where you look at the ins and outs of relating to people on an individual basis by first looking at your own communication preferences, so that you can be a better and more professional communicator with those families, your colleagues, as well as the children themselves. Applied writing is a college-wide course that's also required in this program, and that is where you will learn how to conduct some research, where you will add to your documentation skills, and where you'll learn the fundamentals of making sure that you are communicating effectively to others through writing. Work Safely is a mandatory course that everyone takes, just so that you can know how to be safe on the work site. And then Orientation to Community Service is just a small mini course that includes some online modules, but then we get to plan a really fun day where we actually give back to our communities by volunteering as a class. A great day, honestly, as long as we don't get too much rain. Into the second term, I already mentioned that child development carries over up until age 12. This is where you are going to take your child guidance course called Guiding Children Positively. And that is a course where you're going to learn the ins and outs of interacting with really little ones to create a positive learning environment. So it is a little bit about behavior, a little bit about what most people would consider discipline, but for the most part, it is really about learning how it is that the most effective ways to interact with children so that everybody can participate to their fullest potential in your learning environment. Curriculum development is an extension of program planning that was in fall term, where you're really going to dig into that curriculum framework. Again, you'll be out in the field, spending some time directly with children, getting a chance to try to implement that curriculum framework, and you'll be doing a whole lot of hands-on and playing when you're in the classroom as well. Our classroom rather than the early learning classroom. Inclusive education is a course that is in second term and supports educators in their understanding of what is expected of them, including all children, no matter what their ethnic background or abilities or disabilities may be. Interpersonal communication I already mentioned because it was on the wrong slide. And then an introduction to sociology, which is a very, very foundational course, but applies so well to early childhood education that it gives us another lens to be looking at the ways that we interact. Before we send you off to the workforce, we also think it's important for you to take an employment strategies course. And that's another mini course that's pretty short, about 1 hour a week. But in this course, you actually get the opportunity to take a look at your resume and learn some skills for writing a cover letter that would be appropriate for this field, and also put together a professional portfolio, which are becoming increasingly more common as a requirement for job interviews and actually progressing in your career as an early childhood educator. So it's documentation of your skills and your strengths. And then finally, in the spring term, you'll spend 7 weeks out in the field. I think the plan for next year is to have 4 days on site in an early learning center, supported by a mentoring educator who has some experience working in the field. And then 1 day a week, you'll be back on site to meet with your classmates and your instructors to support you in your assignments and what it is that you're trying to accomplish during the spring term. So that's 7 weeks, pretty intensive in the fields full time. Now, when you hit year 2, that's when you're getting into, I guess, you're solidifying your knowledge that you've acquired in the first year. You're still going to get some experiences out in the field. And you're going to also take a look at what it is to be a leader in early childhood education. So Literacies in Play is a course that really emphasizes how it is that young children learn to be literate people. And it's fascinating because many people think of literacy as only being one type of literacy, but as you can see here, it actually is multiple. And little children are very communicative people. And it's about leveraging that communication skills that they have through their play to be able to set the foundation for future literacies learning as they grow and develop. You're going to take an outdoor play and nature course, which is all outside for the most part. So I'm going to go over a little list of the things you will need to be able to participate to your fullest potential in that course, because sometimes we get some bad weather and you're going to have to go out in it, even if you are working with young children. Diversity and inclusiveness is sort of seen as the second component of the introductory inclusive education, where you dig even deeper into some of the most current research and current trends in diversity and inclusion, I guess. Creating a learning community is a really interesting course where you will spend some time with some children in the field, and also then meet with your classmates in what we call a community of practice, so that you can collaborate with others to come to an understanding of what it is that children are doing in their play, so that you can better plan for their learning. Leadership from within, and I'm going to actually jump down here to leading through relationships, because they are seen as part and parcel. Leadership from within is a course that really gets you to look at your own preferences for leadership. And it doesn't really mean that you need to be a leader in the field right away, because you are also going to be a leader in an early childhood classroom. So what is it that you value as a leader, and what you value in a leader is really what those two courses are about. And leading through relationships takes it to another level by supporting you in being able to lead from an interpersonal perspective. Advanced positive guidance is another course where we would start, we begin where we left off with guiding children positively, and take a look at some of those more challenging behaviors that can occur in an early childhood classroom, to make sure that we are meeting the children's needs to the best of our abilities, so that they can continue to participate alongside their peers. There's an there's an early learning and childcare administration course as well, where you will get an introduction to what it is to actually run an early learning and childcare program, commonly known as a daycare, right? And then families and diversity is really all about creating family involvement in an early childhood program, and making sure that your program really does welcome everybody, no matter where they come from and what their background is. That's what we mean by diversity in that one. And then to top it all off, you will take a course in advocacy in early learning and childcare. And that is a course that will support you in finding your voice, so that you can articulate what it is that you now know is best for young children, so that you can be an advocate for them in your work. So like I said, term one really is focusing on that introductory knowledge, getting used to college. We do a lot of relationship building in the classroom. And then term 2 and 3 is really building on that knowledge to be able to apply it. And that's why you'll spend some time in the field, as well as doing your practicum, so that you can really, really develop those skills in observing children at their play, trying to understand what their play is telling you, and planning for future experiences for the children. Year 2 builds on that foundation year, and then of course you're also looking at those leadership skills. We have something in the early childhood program which is kind of unique, and it's called the living classroom. And it pairs really, really well with the work integrated learning, which is what I was calling field work, where you're actually spending some time in the early learning centers, usually 1 morning a week per term, and your practicum. Those are all considered work integrated learning experiences. And what that is alongside a mentoring educator, you're spending some time engaging with the children, seeing what the work is really like, and then also coming back to debrief with your instructor, and you have support from 2 different individuals, possibly 3, depending on the campus that you're at. The living classroom is the other component of our program that is pretty unique, and that is because we do so much play in our program. We actually have it set up to look or mimic an early learning center, so that you can set up a welcoming environment for children, and you can practice playing, because it tends to be something that we've forgotten how to do by the time we reach adulthood. And this image that you're looking at is just a sample from, I believe, our Miramichi campus's living classroom, where you can see things that are actually going to be in early learning environments around the province. It really focuses on hands-on practical exploration. And that means that you will be playing in our program and having a whole lot of fun doing it. And we spend time indoors and, as I mentioned, outdoors. So outdoor play clothing is required for this program, both at fieldwork and in your outdoor play course that's in the second year. So here's some specific considerations. In order to participate in work integrated learning, it is mandatory that you have a criminal record check and a vulnerable sector check. They come part and parcel, which you can acquire either from your city police or from the RCMP. And our administration has asked that you have that submitted and on file on campus as early as September of 2021, because we'll be putting you out in the field pretty quickly. And then a social development check, which is typically done by your host facility. So an early learning center that has taken you as a student on will request that check for you as well. So that means that you need to have a clean criminal record, and it also means that you will need to not have any strikes against you in the social development system. Some facilities also may require that you have the full list of immunizations. And there's a form that you can acquire from NBCC to make sure that you do have that. And it used to be a mandatory thing, but centers are moving away from it. But if you are working with an older center, they may still require it. Back when I went to community college, I remember having to get the full immunization because it was mandatory then. But we're moving away from that as a field. So it's only if you're working in a more healthcare orientated facility that would be asked of you. The living classroom requirements really do require that you go outside. So that's why I've created this little list for you guys so that you can anticipate some of the extra expenses that you may have. Outdoor play attire for all weather conditions. So in the summer, you're going to need a hat to keep the sun off your face. You're going to need quality shoes for exploring in parks and playgrounds. And you're going to need sunscreen, of course. We try to model that because the children are going to be wearing sunscreen and you are going to be applying it to the children as an early childhood educator. So it's good practice to be modeling that for the children. In the winter, you're going to need warm boots, coats, some snow pants, mittens or gloves, and a hat, and whatever else you need to keep yourself warm because you will be outside playing for a minimum of 2 hours a day when you're working with young children. And in the spring, those in-between messy seasons, the spring and fall, you'll likely need a rain jacket. It's entirely possible you'll need some splash pants. You definitely will need a good pair of waterproof boots. And this time of year, I've been noticing when you're outside, you definitely need some insect repellent. The other thing that I should probably note is that required occasionally for projects and for some of the things that you create for learning experiences for the children, are some things like art supplies, as well as what we call loose parts, which you'll get to learn a lot about. And that's just some open-ended play materials. Don't go rush out and buy those right now, but you may have to purchase some things as you work through your coursework. When it comes to jobs, for the most part, our graduates work in licensed early learning and childcare centers. Some do become an entrepreneur and go on to open their own early learning and childcare center, or even the smaller version, which is an early learning and childcare home. And that is a licensed version of childcare that is provided out of people's houses. And they have the exact same professional requirements as a larger licensed facility would. Preschool programs, which are also under the umbrella of an early learning and childcare center. And sometimes our graduates do find work into the school system as well, typically in EA positions and usually after they have a few years experience with the children. But Carla will expand on EA type of positions in her part of the presentation. There are some students who then go on to continue their studies and end up working as a family life specialist in a hospital or perhaps in early intervention. Or even at family resource centers supporting children who have some higher needs. And I'll turn it over to Carla. I'll come back and answer questions after though.
Thanks, Jenny. That was great. I can say, as Jenny said, she was a graduate of the early childhood education program. I was one of her faculty. So when you saw me, you probably didn't see how much older I am. Thanks, Jenny. I'm glad. It makes me proud to hear you do that. So I've worked in the educational assistant program for the last few years, even though I came from the ECE background, and love them both. So you're entering a wonderful sector because we're working with children and people. So congratulations on your acceptance, and to those of you that are coming to the educational assistant program, welcome. As we said before, there are 6 campuses across the province, and you'll be working, some of you are from different ones, so you'll be seeing them. All right, so educational assistant program, go my assistant Jenny. Ding, I'll do the ding. I should have brought a little teacher bell or something with me. So a little bit about the program. You will be working in classrooms as an assistant to the teacher. You will be supporting individually with children. You may be supporting a full class of children. The reason that educational assistants are hired in the province of New Brunswick is to work with students who have behavior issues, fragile health, and for safety. So it's a little different than perhaps you may have heard of in the past. There's less academic support. That's the responsibility of the teacher. But sometimes you will be assisting a student at the teacher's request. But it's a little less academic and more about supporting students in the classroom. It does say in your academic, that's part of it. Also, though, you may be working with students with very fragile health who require help with medical needs during their time and just for their own safety that you'll be working with them. You will learn how to implement principles of universal design for learning, which support the inclusive environment. And what that means is helping all children at their level in a variety of ways to learn. So you will be learning about something called the universal design for learning. It's in the school system as well, so you might be familiar with it. You'll also be studying techniques to help the learners in your classroom. Usually we look at identifying some of our own learning needs, and that does help us. And you'll be assisting teachers to help students meet their educational goals. Your classes are going to be full of diverse learners, diverse students, and it's a really invaluable role in the part of the educational support team. The requirements for educational assistants are going up quick and are being supported greatly by the school sector because they know how important your role is within the school classroom. Next slide, please, Jenny. At the present time, the educational assistant program is a 1-year certificate, which means September to June. You will acquire the knowledge, skills, and ability to support the students with exceptionalities in the public school system. We will be looking at and working with students from kindergarten to grade 12. You also will be in the position perhaps of an autism support worker, a family support worker, or working with the New Brunswick Association of Community Living, supporting students with exceptionalities. Next slide. So at present time, the educational assistant program is offered at the following 4 campuses. So hopefully you see your campus there. So Moncton, St. John, Miramichi, and Woodstock. For September of 2021, we have what we're identifying as a blended delivery, and you will probably be on campus for a day to a day. It's going to be a day and a half to 2 days in that area. Presently, I believe we're looking at a day and a half, and you'll get that schedule from your corresponding faculty later on as that gets squared away. So Moncton and St. John. St. John has been around for quite a while. Moncton has been about 3 or 4 years. And the Miramichi and Woodstock campuses are just beginning their first offering of the educational assistant program. So we're happy to be growing across the province. Next slide, please. So similar to some of the things that Jenny said, were similar programs. The focus of our first term is what we do is introductory knowledge, and it's kind of the foundational content to help you understand a little bit more about the role and the sector and your role in it. And then what we do in term 2 is move more into what we call an applied, a little more hands-on, developing plans for students, looking at different things like that. And then in the term 3, you are really applying your knowledge as you will be working in schools most of term 3, which is kind of what we call a spring term right now. So the students presently are in the schools, they're in middle and high schools right now. Next. So how the year breaks down for you is term 1 is called the core courses, and then some of the common ones that Jenny already spoke about. So we have an orientation to educational assistant, which again looks at the roles and responsibilities of the educational assistant, will familiarize you with many of the policies and procedures of the New Brunswick school system. You will look at the curriculum and what's happening in each of the grade levels just to be familiar with it when you arrive. Presently, as part of that program at the Moncton and St. John campuses, we have been taking part in something called the Elementary Literacy Friends Tutoring Program, where you are mentoring students typically around the grade 2 level and helping enhance their literacy. That has been part of it, so I'm sure it's going to be province-wide. Human growth and development, similar to what Jenny talked about, child growth and development. What we want to do is identify milestones and look at typical development of children, what types of things are happening as they grow and develop. And we start from conception and go to 18. Unlike with early childhood, they do birth to 12. We're going to go up until 18. 18 to 21 is the last age group for students in the high school system. One of the courses that are really important in the first term, children with exceptionalities, and I hope you like that term, exceptionality. So in that, you'll be identifying different exceptionalities that you may come across when you're working with students, and you'd look at signs, symptoms, how often it may occur, and just to become familiar with some of the terminology around exceptionalities. Usually that's one of the students' favorites. And then one of my favorites, I get a little biased on that, is called Guidance for School Age and Adolescents. So school age children and adolescents. Jenny talked about setting up a positive learning environment in the ECE. In educational assistance, you're working alongside children who may have behavioral issues or working in a full class. So the term that you everyday term that you probably hear would be classroom management, or if you're speaking from a parenting perspective, you think of the word discipline, but that's what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what are strategies that you can use working with children. How do you de-escalate to children who may be arguing, those types of things. So you're going to learn those skills and strategies for sure, necessary. So those are the core courses in the first term, and then some of the courses you see on the right column, if you're listening when Jenny was going through them, they go across probably all of the courses within our school, if not others. One is interpersonal communication, because you do not work in isolation if you're working within the school sector. You're working with teachers, other educational assistants, professionals such as occupational therapists, autism support workers. So learning to communicate is really an essential part of any of our programs. So you'll get some wonderful skills there. Applied writing, helping you learn how to do good sentence formation, how to create a 5-paragraph essay, which is used a lot in the school system. You will be perhaps assisting students with writing exercises. So this is going to help you brush up on some of your skills that we may have forgotten ourselves, from punctuation to capitals to how to form a paragraph. And it's surprising how quickly we forget those things. So Work Safely, again, it's a short course that goes throughout the first term, looking at any of the occupational health and safety issues that you may work with within the school sector. And then, as Jenny also said, orientation and community service is that one day we're going to go out and do some work in our sector out in the schools, or we usually try to do that in the schools or your community. But what it also is helping you learn our leadership skills. And employers in the province have identified that sometimes students coming out of school, out of colleges, don't necessarily have strong leadership skills. So this is a way to help you develop some of those, and then to have the opportunity to go out and work on a project for a day. And it is an awesome team building day, and we really look forward to it every year. Okay, next, Jen. And then term 2 and 3. So if you recall, I said this is more your applications. So the first term we looked at some of the histories, some of the foundational things that would be coming up. One of the courses then you'll move into, okay, so I do have a student who has this particular whether it's an exceptionality, behavior, presenting something. What are the strategies that I use within the classroom to support that student to meet their educational goals? So there's lots of strategies in there. I'm going to look at the one under it, because the strategies for inclusive classroom are kind of that full classroom kind of thing for all the students. The course below, behavioral interventions, that is specifically looking not even necessarily at children with exceptionalities, but looking at students with behavioral issues. And you will find that's a huge role within the sector right now. So we'll look at behavior plans and interventions to help a student who may be exhibiting some of those behaviors. Special topics and mental health is it's one of the newer courses that have come into the program and some of our courses across the college. And what we're noticing is a huge number of students in the school sector experiencing mental health and having mental health concerns. So identifying those and how to work and assist students actually it's one of the favorites again that people talk about. Introduction to sociology. So the school doesn't work in isolation. It's part of a community. It's part of a provincial mandate type of thing. So when you're looking at the introduction to sociology, you're looking at what is the role of the school within culture and all that kind of stuff. So that one's an interesting foundation to help you as you approach some of the behaviors and issues within even the school sector. Healthcare in the educational environment. Now, you think I'm not teaching and I'm not healthy, but one of the things you'll do is you will find that in order to be an educational assistant, you yourself need to be healthy, but you'll also be helping to role model children what health and safety is. You'll be assisting students with exceptionalities, perhaps with a physical limitation within a gym class, and how do you do that? How do you role model nutrition? So it's an overview of health and the impacts it does have on the children and their studies, because, even looking at the need for breakfast programs and that type of thing remind us that our children aren't always coming in with the best meals. So we kind of look at those things and how you and your role as an EA can help support children develop really healthy backgrounds. Now, my term 3 is kind of simple because employment strategies is the last one, and Jenny talked about that. The hiring and how you get hired in the province of New Brunswick is through the local school board, and you apply through them. It's a little different. We're not out job hunting per se, because we have a very targeted place that we apply. So you still need to know how to have a cover letter, and you need to have a good resume in order to get looked at. And some of the districts even do an online portfolio that you would have to submit to them. So we'll do that. But for the most of term 3, which is our spring term, you are in a school. Now, this isn't in place right now, I didn't even notice that, but normally the elementary practicum, we try to do it typically in January so that you have one experience. And then during this time of year right now, the students are either in a high school or a middle school. All of those practicums are 3 weeks, and we have assignments and reflections and stuff to go with it. And so you're going to love teenagers, and you're going to love middle and high school. Surprisingly, out of the 40 students I'm working with right now in St. John, they've been shocked how much they love that level of school. So it's kind of fun to do that. You'll get the experience of all 3 levels. So once you're hired, you'll have the experience to kind of know what to expect in any of the 3 levels of school. All right, next, Jenny. And work integrated learning for us, it's again applying your knowledge, and you are supervised by a teacher in a classroom. So you're placed in a school with a teacher and an EA that you'll be working with. Some schools will rotate you during your 3 weeks. Sometimes you may be with just one teacher. Each school will kind of do it the way they feel the best, but you will have a supervisor from the school, a mentor. One of us will be there to help support you through that. We do get you ready for it. We don't just send you out there. So you will have the opportunity to experience 3 weeks in an elementary school, 3 in middle school, and 3 in a high school. Next, Jen. A couple of other things that we have within the program built in. I mentioned earlier the Elementary Literacy Friends, which is called ELF. You'll have a reading buddy. Typically, you would go to an elementary school With COVID, we've been doing it virtually, and it's a little different. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but you're still assisting a student. Research shows that if a student does not acquire the basic reading and literacy skills by about grade 2, it's a really hard struggle to get them. So in the province of New Brunswick, this program targets any student who may be struggling or a little below grade level, and does about a 10-week, couple-hour-a-week program. And what we're seeing is huge impact and huge increase in students' literacy, and what a great experience for you as a student as well. The other thing that is incorporated into the educational assistant program is something, it's a provincial Autism 1 training. And it's kind of within a course, we do it as an assignment in one of your courses, the behavior intervention course. This is a mandatory course for all EAs in the province of New Brunswick. And luckily for the last 2 years, we have been able to do it as part of our training. So it won't be something you'll have to do once you're out. Working as an EA, you'll already have that training and working with students with autism right away. Yeah, because otherwise you'd be doing it during provincial development days and learning days at the school, but you're going to already have that, have a leg up, and you'll be ready to go. You won't have to do that. So we're pretty proud of that. All right, Jenny? And just so that you do know, we are in the process of developing some of the future plans for the EA program. Is in September of 2022, all applicants will be applying to a 2-year diploma program. So presently we're 1 year. You can still work, so don't panic. You'll still be hired. What will happen is students will be, instead of a certificate, doing a diploma across the province. And this will lead to a pathway into a degree program. So it's a 2-year diploma, 2-year university, and you'll then have your diploma and a degree. That we're really lucky to have a lot of those articulations. And I know we also have them with ECE, which I think is coming up in a little bit. So those of you who are in this year and you do decide to go on and complete your diploma, there will be a way for you to do that. So it's exciting times, and it's showing you the need for extra training in your sector and how the sector is really growing. All right, Jenny. So congratulations, you've made the decision to enter a rewarding career as an educational assistant. The faculty of the EA program are really looking forward to working with you throughout the next year. You're going to challenge yourself in new ways. You're going to develop lots of necessary skills to support students in the classrooms across the province. It is a hands-on program. You'll be working in teams. You'll be doing things individually. And it's really awesome because you get to go in and work directly with the students. All right, Jenny, what do we have next? I think I'm going to skip that based on time and just kind of go through college life. Jen, if you want to do every second one and turn your mic on, feel free.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to add how many days they'll be on campus for us too. So.
Oh, okay. Would you like to say that right in here?
Oh, sure, might as well. Do you guys also do the session the same way that we are?
Sort
That's the other thing. We do session A and session B. All of our courses are actually spread across both. So it's really just term 1, term 2, and term 3. But there's a nice break in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So what Jenny's talking about, the length of your courses, not all courses are the same length or amount of time. You may be doing 6 classes a week in one course, and you may be 3 in another. So one of the ways we do is look at session A, which is a 7 weeks. Some courses may do that. And as Jenny said, some may not. They may go from September right through to December. So if you see on your schedule session A, session B, we do have a few that are only in session A in the educational system program and some only in session B. What that means is you'll finish session A, you're done that course. And then when you come back to session B, there'll be another course. There is a student success week for everybody, regardless of whether you're doing the 7-1-7 model. That's what that means, 7 weeks, 1 week break, and 7 weeks. And then in session 2 for the EA program, January, February, you'll get another week, which kind of we always refer to as a spring break, but it's not quite aligned that way. So it's after the first 7 weeks, and then March, April, and term 3 is April to June. And each program's a little different on what that looks like. But if you hear the term 7-1-7, that's what they're talking about. Lucky for you, you get that 1 week break. All right, Jenny, I'll let you do the next one.
Sounds good. I think I might have clicked too. No, there we go. So as a typical day look like, this is a question that we get an awful lot, and I have to admit that it is up in the air at this point, mostly because of COVID, but also because of the expansion of our programs into, a lot of them are expanding into 2 years right now, it seems, right? But really, when you come to campus, and ECEs next year, first years are going to be on campus full days, twice a week. And then you'll be out in the field for a morning a week, and then the rest of your classes will be virtual, or you'll have independent blocks where you're just working on your own stuff that your instructors have assigned. Right now, it's looking like it'll be Monday and Wednesday that you'll be on campus. But that is tentative, so look for your schedule to be coming to you from your faculty sometime near mid to end August, okay? But a typical day when you are on campus, a lot of the time we'll have a lecture, so we'll be just providing some information and ask you guys what you think about it, and we'll engage in some discussion. And we tend to do that approach to teaching both virtually and face-to-face. But for the most part, when we're on campus in early childhood education, we are doing living classroom activities. So you're like those ladies that you see in the picture, you're going to be down on the floor playing with materials and trying to take the children's perspective on what it is that you are engaging with. So what is the wonder that is blocks, right? You'll get to do that. And there's also a lot of group work in early childhood education because we are a incredibly collaborative field. And there's also independent work as well. So lots of projects, less quizzes kind of thing. Carla, did you want to add anything where you don't do the living classroom there? Or?
Well, we don't do living classroom, but we do a lot of hands-on things, as you would too. We would have perhaps case study kind of work, developing activities you would do with the children. And when it comes to, Jenny talked about virtual classes, what that means is just like tonight at 6:30, you would sign on and we would do what we're doing now, except you would see your classmates, you would see us, and it's interactive, and we may have a discussion group, and we would put you into discussion groups virtually. You might go work with 4 or 5 of your classmates and come back with an answer. So it's like we're in the classroom, but we're doing it virtually. So it's a mix of both next year. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of explains it.
Yep. Oops, that time I definitely did too.
Okay. So what's it look like? Ongoing, how are you assessed, graded? That's a word you might use. It's going to vary according to every class and every course that you take and the instructor and how they do it. Some of them you may do projects, you may do reflections, you may do research. Don't panic, it's research about children, whether they're in an early learning center or in the school sector, right? So it's a little different, it's targeted. Discussions may be posed in the classroom or virtually, where you're thinking you may have to read 2 or 3 articles and give back your take from it, and or you may read something and say, oh, here's how I might use that, or here's how I might change that type of thing. So they're directed, and quizzes, of course, quizzes, tests, whatever word you want to use. There'll be a real variety. Most importantly, the passing grade is 60%. For every course in the program. So, or some of them are pass-fail practicums or things like that, but the grade pass mark is 60, and I think that's important. A lot of students always want to know that during this session.
Mm-hmm. And then some of the classroom expectations and really the habits that do create successful students. And I can't emphasize enough how important not only attendance is, it's great if you're there, but really it's more about engagement. So it's about bringing your whole self to the class every time that you do attend, so that you can engage fully, and make sure that you have done any pre-work that an instructor has asked you to do, so that you can make comments during class, so that you can be part of that discussion. And in order to do that, we really do encourage cell phones to be turned off, or not turned off, nobody turns them off. Put on silent, and out of sight unless you have an urgent thing going on, which of course your instructors are going to be very communicative about. Classroom time management, making sure that you are staying on task when we do give you time to work. And it's really about your own attitude of perseverance and patience, because learning really is a journey. And if there's one thing you will learn at community college, it's that it's a lot harder work than most people will tell you before you actually go into it. And so you need to be patient with yourself, patient with your classmates, patient with your instructors sometimes, and so that you can actually come out successfully at the other end. And the other thing that I really want to emphasize when it comes to the habits of successful students is just being a communicator. Make sure you are communicating with your classmates. Make sure that you're communicating with your instructors on a regular basis, and things will go well for you.
And computer software specifications, the thing I probably know least about, but the software licenses are included in the cost of a 2-year program. So that would be you and Microsoft Suite. So students, you will get access to many of the necessities that you would need in the EA program using Word, and maybe we may have some apps or something along that line. Access to this course. All programs, we consider them what they would use the term live, but we do recommend that you have a laptop and some kind of word processing. Is that a good term, Jenny?
Yeah, that's yes. the old term for something like Microsoft Word.
Yeah, but just
and you really do need a mic and a camera too on your laptop, because we've run into that this year where people were not expecting it. There, look at Angie's put it right in the chat for you guys. Exactly what it is that you're going to need in terms of software. But the software is, you guys have access to it while you are a student. I don't think it's just the 2 years.
Thanks, Angie. Our one of the academic chairs usually does that because she's a computer person. She's not with us tonight, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll find that ECEs and EAs are not the most techy people in the world.
No.
You will use PowerPoint quite a bit in ECE.
Yes. Though. Yeah, just the basic computer stuff. So articulations and agreements. Jenny, you want to take that one?
Sure, I can give it a shot. What these really are agreements between NBCC and other post-secondary institutions, typically universities. And what it means is that you can go on after completing your program at NBCC, and we have an agreement that you can jump right into midway through an undergrad program. So in ECE, we have, I see that there's nothing here that actually says EA.
No,
but in ECE, we have a very new agreement with a new program out of UNB that is an all-online Bachelor's of Education that is specifically in early childhood. And so you would be taking what it is that you learned in our core program after those 2 years and taking a look at some more of the theoretical background of all of it. 2 more years at UNB. And in that is, in that program, they also include a placement where you are actually in a school in a K-3 classroom to keep it in the early years. And you actually end up with a certificate level 4 with a major in elementary education when you complete as well. And then we also have something with the applied business degree. And that is something that actually coincides with many of our 2-year programs.
And the EA program, as I mentioned, is going towards an EA, going to the 2-year program. The educational system is going to 2, and the articulations will be similar to those to do the 2 and 2.
Exactly.
And I think
that's it.
I think that's it. And there's like 1 minute left, Angie.
Yep, so if anyone has any questions, we didn't have any questions put in the chat, but there was a lot of information given. So folks, if you have any questions, now is your time to ask. You have these 2 very knowledgeable ladies here that can answer any questions you have. If you're not comfortable asking them on the microphone or on the camera, just put them in the chat and we can stay on here for another minute or 2 just to see if anyone does have any questions that they'd like answered. That was really great information. I mean, I've been in this position for quite a few years now, and I learned a little bit from each of you. So there's a question about when do you pay your first half of your tuition? So your first half of your tuition is due the first Friday of classes. if you go look at the program page, so whether you're in ECE or EA, if you go and look directly at the program page, click on under tuition and fees. If you're a domestic student, click domestic. International, obviously click international. It'll tell you exactly what is due and when it is due. So those fees that are listed there are for the academic year 2020/21. We haven't gotten the new budget yet, so there might be a slight change, but it certainly won't be a drastic change for fall. Great question, and I think someone put their hand up.
I saw that, but I didn't get to it.
So the start date for everyone is the first Tuesday after Labor Day, and I believe that's September 7th. So that's the first day. It's an orientation day, but it's super, super important. And Jenny or Carla might want to speak to that because so much information is given out on that day.
It's a really important day. We're still shaping up what it's going to look like this year, post-COVID, or fingers crossed post-COVID. But it's because it was all virtual last year, but typically it's a pretty fun day, but also a overload of information. So come with your listening ears on. But the Wednesday after Labor Day will be your first day of real classes.
Okay, I see a couple questions that I probably can do. One of them was I'm a little bit confused about EC students who also work as EAs after graduation. And so Haley asked that question. Haley, would depend, the EA program was only available in St. John for quite a while and only in St. John and Moncton. Some EC graduates, depending on where they live and work, can go into the school system. I do know in St. John, it's the hiring folks here. The EA graduates are first tier graduates, which means they automatically go to an interview. Then they look at other students next. Every district's a little different. So there's a need for EAs across the province. So if the job is there, people can apply and may get the role. So your studies, so ECE specifically is looking at students from birth to 12 and following the New Brunswick curriculum framework, which is very specific and very different than what happens in the school sector. So if you're looking at this, if you want to work in the school sector, then we are looking specifically at the curriculum from schools from kindergarten to grade 12. So although we're working with children, they're very different, but the job market is out there and many people work. But now if you're in an area where there is no EA program, sometimes EC graduates head that way. The other
and the early learning and childcare industry is also, there's a lot of need right now to fill in some spaces that have there's been a bit of turnover. I think early childhood educators did not get a COVID break like many people did. They were working the whole way through, and so there's a big need there too. But I saw another question pop up about it being a 2-year duration diploma program, and it is. But we do offer an opt-out currently, and that will happen next year too. We're not sure how long that's going to keep going. Where you can choose to graduate after your first year and join the field at that point. Now you won't have the same credential for the future, but you still will qualify for that salary top up. Does that answer that question?
Both programs are in high demand right now, so you're not going to have issues finding work. There is a question from Brittany regarding the online program. Brittany, your program is going to look very different in your scheduling, and I don't know, it's been a year or so since I've looked at it. It will look very different. Probably it won't necessarily be
not really blended.
No, and it's totally.
No, they're still doing a 5-week course delivery, and there's no virtual classes. It's mostly asynchronous. And you're in a big group across the province. Some of your classmates will not be in St. John, in other parts of the province.
So
Jenny,
it's typically designed for people who are working with children already, so that they can get the credential they need. But there are some students who have no experience. Yep.
Jenny, could you just explain for some what asynchronous was? Because I didn't know what it was for quite some time.
Sorry. Asynchronous just means that you're doing it in your own time. It's to support.
And it's very scheduled, though. You'll have 5 weeks, and in week 1, there'll be very specific things that you're to accomplish. And Krista Tate asked a question. She's accepted EC St. John program. And Krista, I think if you joined us late, this is a combination of ECE and EA.
And Krista, I apologize. I responded to your question, but I tagged Cheyenne in it. So I was answering your question, but I tagged Cheyenne. So this webinar is for all students at all campuses in ECE and EA. So my apologies, I tagged the wrong one. Could one of you speak to the question about book list?
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the book list typically is only given out around the same time as the schedule near the end of mid to late August. That's mainly because we have to wait on publishing. Sure that we can keep it up. But most campuses, mine not included, you can go to the campus bookstore and get all of your books for campus. I'm in Fredericton, and because of we campus share with UNB, our books are sold out of their bookstore. So it's still on campus, but it's a little bit of a hike down a hill.
And typically in on campuses, we schedule, if you're on campus, you can get your books in the summer. They won't be there now. They'll roll in near the end of August. They would all be there. You may be able to go into the bookstore. There physically would be a book list there, and you can purchase them. I wouldn't rush now because there won't be there. But typically the very first week, if you don't have the books, we have a scheduled time for you to go to the bookstore. Every campus is a little different, but you will have time to go in, and you have time to go in to the bookstore. Paige asks, are the different campuses going to be doing online learning together? Some are blended. Sometimes you work with 2 campuses. Sometimes you work with 3. We do. It depends. For example, the educational system program is only at Moncton and St. John campuses. Sometimes you may be together, and most of the courses you're not. And with the Woodstock and Miramichi, the same thing. Sometimes you'll be together for certain courses, and sometimes you'll be just with those on your campus. And I know in EC you do a lot of cross teaching as well. What's happening this year?
Mostly in the second year, though. First year, it's we do a lot more hands-on because of the foundational work, and so you're on campus a little bit more, which of course doesn't allow for people to be in St. John, Miramichi at the same time. So second year has a lot more of that crossover where you get to work with people who will be your colleagues later all over the province, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. And I see I'm in the 1-year program. There will be a bridge or a mechanism to go from when you guys finish the EA program this year and it moves to 2-year, there will be a mechanism for you to move into the second year. I don't know exactly what that looks like, to be quite honest, at this point. We're just building the 2-year course. We're consulting with the districts across the province. It's kind of an exciting time, but yes, you will have the ability to do that. I think Angie asked student loans and grants.
So I was just responding to Leah asking if she was a New Brunswick resident, because I really don't have a lot of information if you're not a New Brunswick resident, but I can tell you that New Brunswick residents can apply for your student loan. Usually it's this week. I have a daughter in post-secondary. We checked yesterday, it wasn't there. It's usually anywhere from the beginning to the middle of June that they post that. And I will put the website where you can go to apply for that. As far as student loans, grants, bursaries, etc., it's one super duper easy application. You just need to have your 2020 tax information. If you're under the age of 22, you would need your parents. If you only live with one, you would need just theirs. If you're over the age of 22 and have a spouse, you would need theirs. So basically, it's your income tax information. That's the big thing that you need. And I will put the website here in the chat. And just make sure when you go to look, you're looking for, it's hard to wrap our heads around, but you're looking for the application for 2021/22. Seems crazy that we're there already.
Did we miss any questions? I'm just checking the
I just looked up and I didn't see any.
I'll add to that while you two are looking. Make sure that you apply for our NBCC Foundation scholarships. When you arrive here in the fall, there's some really fantastic. Our foundation gives out hundreds of thousands of dollars in bursaries. They are solely financially based. That application can be found right on our website. So make sure you apply for that as well, and I'll put the link for it there.
You're a nice fast typer, Angie. You get that in there.
I've been doing her for a while.
So to know how many screens she has going, it's like Minority Report.
So if we missed your question, I apologize. I kind of tried to keep an eye. If I missed a question, please retype it or put your hand up and just shout it out to us, whichever. But I think we did all right.
I think so as well. I will put my contact information here so that if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me, or you can always email collegeworks@nbcc.ca. But I'll put my email here as well. And if your question I'm not able to answer, I will check with either one of these ladies. And actually already tonight, Jenny got back to me about something and I'm going to send it on further down the line. So if we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you.
I do believe too that most of you would have received contact to the coordinating instructor for the program that you were accepted to. I know I've received a lot of questions, and so you may have received that. And feel free. We do check over the summer emails occasionally, but just so you know, we are not usually working during the summer. But occasionally the coordinator, you are. Talk to Angie, but I do honestly, if it's an EA question from Moncton or St. John, I'm on pretty well all summer. I'm online, so your coordinators will look occasionally, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, you want it fast, go to Angie, because I might be on vacation on the beach somewhere.
I take a little bit of vacation, but the recruitment advisors do work year round. Our instructors, I have found, are amazing, that most of them do check their emails over the summer and whatnot. Something that just popped into my head that I wanted to mention, registration. So make sure there's information somewhere throughout the various communication you've received. Registration is really important. If you go to the College Preview Day website, the page on our website, there's a little video that I've done about registration. Really, really important that you make sure you register. It'll be coming out, I think, August 16th. And that's really important that you do that. So that's the next step kind of thing. Today, College Preview, this is your chance to ask the instructors all your questions. And your next step, if you've already paid your confirmation fee, you're good. If you haven't done that yet, your confirmation fee would be your next step, and then registration in August. Yeah, so that's great. We'll give you just another second if there's any more questions. We don't want to close out if you have questions, but we've had great participation tonight. It's wonderful to see so many people logged on. Carla and Jenny, thank you both. You were very, very informative, and we hope that we've answered everyone's questions. I don't see any questions coming up. So on that note, I think we will say good night. And everyone have a great evening. If you have any questions, reach out to us and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having us, Angie.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, everybody.
Okay, I'll just make a little comment here. Javier, I see that you are in Miami and the time was a little bit different. This session is being recorded and it's going to be posted on our website next week. So if you come back to the College Preview Day website, June 7th, you will find this webinar is there and all the information. All right, folks, have a great night.
Thank you, Angie. Bye-bye. See you, Jen.